the first of a series of Nuclear Skills Plans webinars. So thank you for joining us on our first one today. We're going to start from the top with an overview of the skills plan and its progress to date from the two government skills directors, Emily Ashwell and Mark Rouse. And with that in mind, I will hand over to Emily and Mark because I think everybody has currently joined us from the lobby.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Hannah. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on the National Nuclear Strategic Plan for Skills, otherwise known as the Nuclear Skills Plan, because it's too much of a mouthful otherwise. My name's Emily Ashwell. I'm based in the Ministry of Defence. Anyone else based in the Ministry of Defence, especially in the main building, knows there is a rotten cold going round at the moment. So apologies in advance. I may sound rather croaky and I may cough. I can't do much about it. I'm joined by my colleague Mark Rouse from the Department for Energy, Security and Net Zero. Together, Mark and I are the skills directors leading the delivery of the Nuclear Skills Plan. So we're going to walk you through the plan today, what it is, what it's aiming to deliver, progress to date. We're going to cover a bit on the current state of the nuclear workforce and what the future needs of the sector look like. We're going to sort of comment on the gap between, I suppose, supply and demand of workforce. That's what's driven the need for the National Skills Plan and for a sort of scale and order of magnitude of response that hasn't been seen before in the sector. We're going to talk a bit about the collaboration between civil and defence nuclear that the plan embodies. That's one of the key features of what we're looking to do differently through this plan. It's also one of the early successes. Some of the largest players in the nuclear industry are working together to jointly grow and develop the workforce, and that's critical, that set of behaviours, to the success of this endeavour. We're going to talk about some of the specific initiatives and work streams the plan involves and how you and your organisations can get involved and find out more. So hopefully by the end of the session, you'll know a bit more about the skills plan and what we're hoping it will achieve for the industry and the workforce. And we will have time for questions at the end, so do send them through, and I think Hannah and Becky will organise and deal with Q&A at the end. Do you want to go on to the next one, Hannah? The nuclear workforce is a really critical sector for the whole of the UK economy. In defence, nuclear technology has sustained the UK's continuous at-sea deterrent for more than half a century. There are submariners working round the clock to keep us safe. Many of you will have seen the recently published Defence Nuclear Enterprise Command paper, setting out the commitment to the nuclear deterrent for as long as it's needed. It reaffirms our commitment to global stability and working with our allies and NATO. And it's a huge commitment to enhancing our industrial base and to closer partnership with business and academia to maximise the economic opportunity and investment in communities that is part of what the nuclear deterrent delivers. In the same way, you will have seen that energy security and delivering net zero are at the heart of the government's agenda. The Department for Energy and Security and Net Zero are leading one of the Prime Minister's 5 national missions about making Britain a clean energy superpower and delivering zero carbon electricity by 2030 and accelerating the journey to net zero. Nuclear energy is key to part of that national mission and to the UK being a clean energy superpower. So it couldn't really be more important for national security, for energy security, for net zero. The government will ensure the long-term security of the sector by extending the lifetime of existing nuclear plants and by focusing on new nuclear. So the government's working to complete Hinkley Point C. It's also looking at new nuclear power stations such as Sizewell C and at small modular reactors. It's a really critical industry. It's a really critical workforce. It's expected to grow significantly, and that's a significant opportunity for all of the communities that already have nuclear sites and those that may accommodate them in the future. The sector includes all the organisations that play a role in delivering the defence nuclear deterrent and powering the submarine fleet, as well as underpinning the civil nuclear energy programme, which, as I said, is becoming broader and more diverse in nature. It includes activity from programme concept all the way through to disposal and decommissioning. And it covers a huge workforce in both public sector and private sector organisations. So it already supports thousands of highly skilled jobs. In 2023, the Nuclear Workforce Assessment, which is the data that's collected on the industry many of you may be familiar with, gave a very clear signal about the expected growth in demand for nuclear skills in coming decades. It obviously represents a significant opportunity for new jobs and for providing highly skilled, interesting pathways for thousands of new people to build long, rewarding careers across the sector. But nuclear skills are scarce, and the competition for talent's already high, and it's only going to get greater. We also need people with the skills to support the industry, from project managers through to welders and everything in between. And it's not just in the UK that demand for this whole set of skills is growing. There's also going to be fierce competition internationally for talent because other countries are experiencing the same transformation of their nuclear sectors. So our challenge is to grow the sector and meet demand, and demand is growing. So as you can see on the screen, the nuclear workforce stood at about 83,000 people in 2023, but the increased demand for infrastructure and for aspects of growth expected in the nuclear deterrent mean the workforce assessment indicated that we need to find another 40,000 people net to meet the future needs of the sector. And that's in order to deliver these critical priorities of national security and energy resilience. The Nuclear Skills Plan was launched by the industry as a response to this picture. It comprises a range of projects to grow and develop the workforce. So some of the early interventions that we'll talk more about include things like doubling the intake of graduates and apprentices. We need to do that by academic year 25-26 and then keep going. We've also launched a cross-sector national comms campaign that we'll talk more about, as well as a range of other specific projects and initiatives to recruit, to retain, and to develop the workforce across the sector. And just in case you didn't have a sort of great enough sense of the challenge here from the demand growth that I've described, we also know that 35% of the nuclear workforce are over the age of 50. So highly experienced people, but we know that there will come a tipping point when we will lose some of them, and they will be some of the most experienced people in the industry. It highlights that there really is an urgency in addressing this challenge. Let's go on to the next slide. So as I said, employers across the sector came together to respond to this challenge. They developed and launched the Nuclear Skills Plan. They signed up to the Nuclear Skills Charter. The Charter has a clear vision for how the sector will work to respond to the challenge that I've described. It talks about how we will work together to build the nation's capability for the nuclear sector by growing a diverse and inclusive workforce that is motivated, recognised, and inspired. The CEOs of many of the biggest employers in the country have signed up and committed their organisations to working together in this way, to respond to the step change needed in how the sector approaches workforce development and recruitment. They've committed funding. They've provided experts to support delivery, experts to support the governance of the plan. And they've also seconded a number of individuals into our team to be responsible for leading the delivery of the various work streams that we'll talk about. So it's a significant commitment from organisations across the sector at the highest level. And it talks about a completely different way of the industry working to address our workforce challenges, standing together, collaborating and behaving differently, thinking about the needs today and inspiring the workforce of the future, and the leaders and the sector being visible and active in meeting this challenge. As I said, the Charter and the Skills Plan were signed up to by CEOs from across the sector. Some of the organisations that were part of that you can see on this slide. Their CEOs continue to oversee the delivery of the plan and to lead the endeavour that they've launched through something called the Nuclear Skills Executive Council, the NSEC. So the NSEC is the sort of overarching steering body for delivery of the plan. It continues to monitor progress. The CEOs will all come together regularly to resolve any issues, to think about next steps, to horizon scan and identify the additional things we need to think about as a sector. The NSEC's jointly chaired by my boss, Maddie McTernan, and by Mark's boss, Lee McDonough. So you can see everything about this endeavour is about joint working and collaboration between civil and defence at the most senior level to represent the commitment of all the key employers to the need to meet this workforce challenge. I'll just talk a little bit about how the actual delivery is working. So as I said, the NSEC is overseeing the plan, and the NSEC has set up something called the Nuclear Skills Delivery Board with representatives from all of their organisations and some other key actors in the sector that Mark and I chair to focus on the delivery of the plan. So the NSDB drives plan delivery on an ongoing basis. It ensures all the initiatives that we're going to discuss are effectively executed across the sector. It tracks outcomes, and obviously it will adjust and evolve these work streams to make sure we're continuing to respond to what the sector needs. We've also got a dedicated team of individuals seconded from various organisations amongst the NSEC called the Nuclear Sector Skills Team, the team that Mark and I lead, who are working on the day-to-day delivery of the plan. We have project leads for each of the work streams, and we also have people who work on finance, communications, contracts, etc. So everything necessary to stand up, deliver on, scale, and monitor progress of the very ambitious set of endeavours that the nuclear plan comprises. I've talked a bit about the governance and the delivery mechanism. I'm going to hand over to you, Mark, to talk a bit about the specific work streams that make up the plan and some of the early successes.
Okay, thank you very much, Emily. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Right, let's get into the plan itself. The NNSPS, let's call it the Nuclear Skills Plan for ease. It exists. The task force led by Sir Simon Bolam did a great job. They worked through at rapid pace and identified the key elements and the key areas that we need to work on to hit that 40,000. and no apologies. You'll keep seeing that 40,000 keep appearing. That's what we're laser focused on. We're driving towards creating that net 40,000 and all that goes with it. It breaks down into four broad areas that we'll use for now to sort of group this together. But I'm sure you can see just by looking at that, a lot of these crossover, they feed off and into one another. So it's not a pure one-for-one relationship. But it picks up where the charter sets things out, the collaborate side of things, the working together, that core behaviour that Emily and I intend to model and show that we can bring this sector together to do something quite unique, and also bring in the regionality of this. It's a national programme, a national endeavour, which is really inspiring, but it plays out in the regions and those local issues. So we'll talk about the regional hubs in a little bit. The deepen, how do we get more people into this business? How do we retain the people we've already got who might be interested in other sectors? Many other sectors who are going through exactly this kind of challenge as they try to hit their own programs. So how do we get people at different stages? How do we get the people who are maybe reaching the end of their career to get into training their colleagues, as Emily mentioned? How do we get the balance right between skills for nuclear and nuclear skills? Very aware of the precious nature of nuclear skills, the length of time to produce them, and the fragility of them once we've got them. How do we invest, not just in the future, but in the present? How do we invest in the people we've got? We don't want to just value people who are new or coming into the sector, but value the people that we've already got in our sector. You'll hear us talk about optimizing the training landscape a lot in that section, and I'll expand on all these in a little bit in the next few slides. And then leading, how do we have equality, diversity and inclusion flowing right through all the programs that we've got, so that we reach out to as many and diverse people as we can? How do we get our leaders moving around the sectors? We tend to be very streamlined into defence or civil, public or private. How do we get that movement in between those? All of which leading to those 40,000 people. But the plan exists. We're not having to create it. That was done for us. Our job is to get on and deliver it and unpack each of these. So I'll unpack each of them a little bit, give you a bit of depth on them, what we've achieved so far and where we're going. So on to the next slide, please. Not sure if that's better. There we go. So this is probably one you've heard of, our national comms campaign embodied in the Destination Nuclear campaign. Ever so proud to be part of that. I was around when it was launched, when it was a bit of a pet project, and now it's become the iconic symbol of how we can actually join our sector together, that we are all working in harmony and talking about the sector that we should be really proud of. So it's a 3-year program designed to attract, retain and develop people. Embedded in it is a portal that we can start capturing, understanding who's applying, where people are going, and also get it linked to the regional needs. Where we've got a steering group of this, so there is that nationality to it, but there's also listening to you and each of your regions, each of your parts of the business, and how we can help signpost that and frankly show off about this sector that few people have heard of before. But as Emily said in the introduction, is so important for our ambitions in the future. On the 7th of October, phase 2 was launched, so you may have seen a little silence from Destination Nuclear as we revved up for phase 2, but that's burst into life as of last Monday, and you'll see the campaigns starting to come to a place near you, particularly if you're around London. You see a lot of this. You can see some of the numbers on there, and it's always difficult with web-based applications. You know, are these good numbers, are these bad numbers? And we're very attuned to that to make sure they aren't just numbers, but that we're understanding, are these moving the dial somewhere? Is this something that is actually attracting and helping retain people into the sector? They feel pretty good to us as a start place. You know, we've never been able to capture numbers like this in the past. So 90,000+ available positions on careers, people viewing those. Thousands and thousands, 63,000+ people visiting the website. And it's building and building under Lynn and the team's leadership, just to showcase our sector and your parts in it. So a really important part of this overall picture. Lots of interest. I know lots of you want to be involved. Lots of you already are. And again, we'll signpost a bit of the ways of getting involved towards the end of this. So let's move on to the next one and the regional hubs. Let's be careful with the word hub. You will see and hear the word hub so many times. We're busy creating a few. It's a natural thing for a national campaign. You tend to gather things together and call them a hub, and we'll try and be careful to make sure they're very explicit what they are. In my previous role, we were creating local hubs in the local community, so we'll be very careful with these. But they are such an important part of connecting the national ambition with the regional needs and allowing you to focus on what is needed and get that broad community of people together to discuss those needs. So it is not just the NSEC companies, it is where the regional providers start talking to those NSEC members, start looking at, well, how do we do things together? So a lot of collaboration, and if we look at what we've already achieved, the Southwest and Northwest hubs are up and running. They've had a number of meetings. Northwest, and whilst there are companies who lead these things, they don't dominate them. But BAE and NDA Sellafield lead on the Northwest. They're two big centres of gravity in that area. Again, first time ever really working closely together on a common issue and not just competing. The Southwest, we've got EDF and Babcock working together and leading that hub. The Midlands hub is just about there. Rolls-Royce and AWE will lead on that in that regional area. Scotland is also well advanced. Babcock and NDA are particularly looking to lead on that. And thoughts about a Welsh hub and how we could have something in that region starting to develop. So ever so important for those regional needs. We run, Becky runs a coordinating group to make sure that we keep a certain harmony. We're not trying to have a blueprint for each of these. They will have regional differences. They will find their own identity, but we want to make sure they don't duplicate effort, that we share effort, and we keep that clarity of alignment with the national programme. So an important part that is developing really fast and really getting some traction. On to the next slide, a couple of slides on the deepen theme, really getting into, how are we going to create 40,000 new people, apprentices, graduates, key areas that we will focus on, thousands more needed. Essentially, every year for the next 5 years, we need to be doubling our apprentice intake and our graduate intake. I am really impressed with what's been done out there, what you've done. The first year, we have doubled graduates, certainly. Apprentices, a fraction behind target, but people are still coming in. So to have had a first year where we've hit those kind of targets, and of course, what they reveal is the challenge ahead, that if we do that every year, how are we going to create the infrastructure? How are we going to create the experience that makes those people want to stay in our sector rather than take our training and run off some other sector? But we're alert to that. That's part of the programs that we're running, and we'll work with you to figure out just how we're going to hit that challenge. On the other side of this, we've got how do we attract people in and pay people to come from areas they may not have come from? So creating bursaries for graduates, a sponsorship scheme. Sponsorship scheme has kicked off. We aimed for 50 this year. We got somewhere around 33 great candidates. And that's the feedback I've had, that they have been great candidates, that these are people from less privileged backgrounds that our normal selection criteria would not have sent us in the right direction for. So we're already starting to hit that ED&I sort of philosophy, that we go look in different places and embrace different groups of people into our business. So that's part one of the deepen. Part two of the deepen starts to look at people like career switchers, sector experts and the like. I'm not sure yet, there is a fraction of a lag, isn't there? So career switchers, we want to shamelessly promote our sector and all the great things we do and the national importance of what we do and get people with those relevant skills. And we know that Skills for Nuclear embraces a huge sector of people out there that most of us, I didn't join a nuclear industry, I joined a shipbuilding industry doing CAD/CAM and have slowly become a nuclear person over time. So we know there are lots of people out there who would be very interested if only we could get them a little bit of a glimpse of what we've got. We know we have regionality challenges that people don't always want to move around the country. So how do we help with those kind of things? So expanding on through Destination Nuclear, starting to talk up, how do we switch people into our sector? How do we switch them between parts of our sector? That interchange idea that you don't just have to be defence or civil. I'm an example of that. Started in defence, moved into civil, now seem to be right back in the middle of both of them, which is absolutely fantastic. Sector experts into training is something we've talked about for years and years. We've seen other countries do this very well. We tend to panic a little bit about people coming near the end of their career. Everybody is seeing such a wonderful opportunity to give them a different skill set so that they can start sharing that knowledge with their existing colleagues, with their new colleagues that we're going to attract in, and go through it in a systematic way. So we give them those skills, that confidence that they can pass on, those years and years of expertise that we could let slip through our fingers in the next decade. PhDs talk specifically to nuclear skills, those rare and precious things that both need creating. We estimate we need to quadruple the number of PhDs, qualified people in the system in this time scale. And we need to give them experience and retain them. There's no point just qualifying them and sitting them on a shelf. They need to get out into our businesses. And again, this is where the national approach will apply. Where we've got energy and activity in various parts of our sector, we will feed people in that kind of direction and get them those the E to go with the Q in their SQEP profile. So quite a lot going on in the deepen area that we're just getting into and just getting the ball rolling. So I think that leads me back to Emily for the next few slides.
Brilliant, thanks, Mark. I'll talk a little bit about Invest. You've obviously heard Mark talk about some of the ambitious targets for recruitment into the sector. Retention of the existing workforce is just as important for delivery of the ambitious targets in the plan. We need to create a strong nuclear community and improve retention, collaboration, and open up opportunities across the nuclear sector. So work on mobility across the sector and around organisations is also critical. There's a significant focus in the plan on critical skills areas and the training landscape for these. The plan includes work to standardise career paths, role descriptions, associated curricula and qualifications, all of which is quite helpful and important to really maximise mobility across the sector and ensure that organisations and employers, as well as the workforce themselves, are talking in the same language when it comes to skills. We also need to make sure we're giving a really clear demand signal to training providers as far in advance as possible so that they are ready to meet the demand as it grows, and the plan is an important part of how we do that. So if we just talk about some of the early successes, interchange, as I said, is going to be a really key part of this. And we've already set up a nuclear interchange hub. It's been established and organisations have been invited to sign up. So all of the NSEC members committed last week to do so. One of the critical things about the interchange hub is that it has a common set of placement agreements for both industry to industry and industry to government interchange. So that will be something that will help facilitate far more straightforward mobility across the sector. Interchange is obviously a really great way for developing experience as well. So it can range from short-term career sort of shadowing and networking events through to longer-term secondments, loans and placements. And this hub will help maximise the opportunities for that and create lots of new opportunities between organisations who have signed up. Should we go on to the next slide? I'm going to talk about optimising the training landscape. As I said, there's a number of work streams within the plan that are also looking at critical skills areas and how to standardise the experience for people working across these, including the career paths, the role profiles, the curricula, and the qualifications. We've established a provider coordinating body to support this work. It's made up of lots of existing provider-focused organisations and federations that you'll probably have heard of. So, for example, NSAN, the National Skills Academy for Nuclear, the National College for Nuclear, the Engineering Construction Industry Training Board, the Construction Industry Training Board, people from higher education and vocational education. It's a really valuable group that meets monthly to support delivery of the skills plan objectives, to give us advice and to help cohere the training provider landscape for us. It's particularly useful in helping inform and influence the work on optimisation of training. Next one, please. Thanks, Hannah. So also key to this is leadership, the development of leadership, and also improving equality, diversity and inclusion across the sector. They're all very important components of the plan. We're looking to actively improve ED&I through data analysis of the current workforce and through industry collaboration to ensure that the future workforce that we attract is both diverse, but also that this is an inclusive sector to work in. So we've done some early steps here to set up an EDI working group that will be responsible for ensuring all of the different work streams you've heard about that make up the plan have ED&I embedded throughout them, and that we're thinking about that from the outset. We'll also be making a set of standalone interventions to recruit and retain underrepresented groups. In addition, we've got some specific leadership schemes that form part of the plan. So the cross-sector leadership project will create pathways to support leadership engagement across nuclear organisations. You'll have seen from what both Mark and I have said that cross-sector collaboration, engagement, mobility are really important parts of this scheme, so that the sector as a whole feels more coherent and works together more seamlessly, and people can move around it more seamlessly. The cross-sector leadership project is aimed at future leaders of the sector. It's a one-year programme targeting senior leaders, giving them opportunities to collaborate and to work together on key challenges within the sector. So it's going to aim to foster a community through the generation of alumni, and it will also build diversity because there'll be a sort of focused ED&I component to selection for the programme. Participants will be senior managers likely to move into executive roles in the near future. And at the start of the programme, they're all going to be given a business challenge by the NSEC. So the people currently running the sector and tackling today's challenges and thinking about the future ones will be setting a problem for this group to tackle. And the group will get a set of curated support and academic and business leader mentoring over the course of a year to help them think about how to address that. We're also establishing a future leader scheme as part of the programme, targeted at high potential individuals in middle management. So these are people that could be future leaders in years to come and will be responsible for delivering and leading many of the programmes we talked about. It'll help them to have to develop their credentials in a specific nuclear context, but also to build their networks and to collaborate across the sector, and to do some interchange, so spending time in each other's organisations, again promoting this sense of mobility around the sector, which will be really critical to getting the most out of the career pathways for the future leaders of the sector. So there's lots to the plan. We've been through at some pace, I think, 15 different work streams. Many of them have already been stood up and are beginning to deliver. There's still more to come. Should we talk briefly about the next things, Hannah? Okay, so a whole bunch of things coming to a cinema near you soon that we are pretty excited about. We're launching a new website and updates and comms to keep you informed about the Nuclear Skills Plan and the various initiatives we're running. We're launching the Nuclear Graduate Bursaries programme shortly. As Mark mentioned earlier, the Midlands hub should be up and running, and we're looking at hubs in Scotland and Wales. We're building the network of subject matter experts from the wider community to support the optimising the training landscape work streams that I talked about. So I talked a bit about some of the organisations involved in that. We're also beginning our regional outreach campaign for Destination Nuclear, and next phases of that campaign should be visible to you soon. It's apparently coming to Netflix, amongst other things. We're also doing work on the wider sector and educating and communicating about the different work streams in the plan, how to get involved. We'll be at a series of events. We'll be doing more monthly webinars. And last but not least, we're launching the Nuclear Interchange Hub, and I think a big focus on signing up organisations to be part of it, because the more that join, the greater the opportunity we can create through that hub. Lots to get on with. We're very excited about all of these new initiatives, but it will also be critical to spend time evaluating some of the early progress and thinking about where we need to fine tune, as well as to scale up some of these interventions. Mark, do you want to talk a little bit about how people can get involved?
Yes, I can hear them shouting through the screen. How do I get involved in this? Well, there's a number of ways for you to get involved. We have a LinkedIn page. Everybody has a LinkedIn page, but it's ever so important that we have one, and you can go there and see what's coming, where the contact people are. I know you're already asking those kind of questions. Get involved with Destination Nuclear, promote it, support it, use it, make it that iconic emblem of our industry, of our nuclear sector. Very keen that we don't recreate, double up things. So please seek out your skills representatives, the people who are sitting on the various hubs and boards, so that we can get this thing focused. This is about harnessing all our collective energies, not diluting them. So please reach out. I've seen some questions already you're asking, so we'll help you with that. But please create those networks within your companies that feed into our endeavour, so that we're all aligned on this. Promote apps and grads opportunities on Destination Nuclear Portal, as it says there. Please use that. It's a vehicle for everybody to be able to signpost their businesses. We'll do some work as well to make sure that when you interview people and they don't find a job in your organisation, that we don't just lose them to the sector, that we capture them as part of our overall nuclear sector. There are some great people who don't quite fit one job but can fit another job. Sign up for future webinars. This one is meant to trail the overall picture. There will be a series that will delve into different aspects of, as we start to unpack and work through some of the big challenges ahead of us, and sign up for the newsletter and the mailing list so that we can keep you in regular contact. And those of you, what have we got, 234 people left on the call? Go and talk to 234 other people. Go and spread the news. Those that didn't get to this, pass on the information and get them linked in. So lots of ways to get involved, as well as just talking to us direct. Many of you out there know us or members of the team. So on to a bit of a summary and then a chance for Q&A. So as I say, the aim of this was to give you a high-level overview, to move us from some of the myth and rumour about the task force, what was in, what was out. You can see we have a major challenge ahead of us to tackle this sector's skills requirements. The 40,000 number is one of the smaller numbers that you can dredge out of this system when you look at the total number of people we have to attract in, given that there will be leavers and movers. So quite a challenge. I'm always minded of JFK at these points when you want inspiring things. And he didn't say, I think we should go to the moon. We'd like to go to the moon. If it's really possible, could you help us go to the moon? He said, we're going to the moon. The leaders in our sector, the chief executives in our sector have said, we are creating 40,000 net new jobs. We are tackling this problem head on and finding the ways to do it. And they're going to do it by collaborating. Hopefully we've shown you, we have that very, very senior support. It's not just a skills endeavour, this. It's a business endeavour. It's critical to all those chief execs and their equivalents for their businesses to survive into the future that we're all painting. We have a plan. We're not creating a plan. You can see the combined elements of that plan, how they link together, what they're trying to achieve. In our discussions with senior people, with people in the industry, they keep focusing on the same things. So it's been really heartening this last 6 months to see everybody saying, we want to do this, we want to achieve this, but it's hard. So there are ways to get involved, there are ways to get us, work with us to help go through that. And hopefully we've painted that picture for you, whetted your appetite. But now is the chance to have some immediate Q&A. Becky Pleasant is online with us, our program delivery director, tasked with the really hard part of this, of bringing it together, but supported by her project leads. They're all on the call here. You've been sending questions in, which I'm ever so grateful for. So thank you for listening to Emily and I. And over to Becky to field some questions.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Mark. I think that's hopefully given people a really good oversight of the project and the programme. And as you say, Mark, there's a number of questions that have been coming in. We probably won't get round to answering them all today, but what we will do is commit to doing an FAQ type document that will supplement the slides that we'll be sending out after the session. So those that we can't answer on call will definitely get an answer to you after call anyway. So I'll just pick through on that basis some of the ones which have come in no particular order. There are a couple of very easy ones to answer, which are around information that will follow up on this webinar. So the first thing to say is that the slides will be distributed afterwards. So that was a specific question. And there are also a couple of questions around points of contact, either into hubs or to other points of contact in organisations. So what we'll do after the call with the summary slides and FAQs is to give you a list of those points of contact so that you can go into a central person or people, and then we can then in turn signpost you out as appropriate to the right person for you to speak to. So that's covered a few of the questions, I think, that were in the chat. But I will now pick through a few others. I'll have a go answering some. I'll signpost them to Emily, to Mark, or to other project leads on the call as we do. And I'll start off with the first question, which is around the options for late joiners to the nuclear industry. And I'm really very aware that often the perception is that we're doing a lot of stuff for early career joiners and bringing new people in, but what about keeping those that we have already got in the sector? So I think as a general opening point, the plan very much is intended to both bring new recruits in, bring experienced recruits in, but also then to retain and develop the people that we have got. And I think it might be worth Shona, if you don't mind, just bringing you in at this point, just to talk a little bit about the interchange programme as one example of something that we're doing for the later career joiners or for anyone that's already in the sector.
Yeah, thanks, Becky. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
Super. Yeah, so the interchange program, the nuclear interchange program that we're launching soon, we've invited all organisations across the sector to join. So that includes all defence organisations. So Army, Air, Navy and Joint Stratcom will be in there as well. The interchange program is for everybody across the whole sector, civ and mil. So military personnel can definitely take advantage of moving into civil organisations around the whole enterprise. And that's for people of any rank, any trade, any age, so any career stage. So it's absolutely for everybody. Hopefully that answers the question. Back to you, Becky.
Thanks, Shona. And actually what you've partly gone on to do is answer another question in the chat that we might come back to, but around, is this programme for civil and defence, and how are we including both parts of the sector in that? So I might come back if we get a chance to that one. So back to the options for late joiners. So that's one example. Obviously, we've already talked about the leadership programs that are there for all, in terms of being nominated at least. We've also got very specific programs directed at bringing people in at a mid-career level from other sectors into ours that Mark and Emily talked through earlier, the mid-career joiner programs, the career switcher programs, focusing on those second careerers that you mentioned in there. I'll move on to the next question, which was about devolved administrations and how they're represented in the governance structure. Emily, do you mind picking that one up?
Thanks, Becky. Actually, I spoke at an event for the Scottish Parliament quite recently, so it's a good question. We're obviously engaged with all of the key bodies who take an interest in skills development. So we're talking with other bodies about the plan and how to get involved. We're looking specifically at hubs in Scotland and Wales, and obviously the organisations that sit around the NSEC have operations across all the devolved nations and are very focused on how to make sure that skills development in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland is as much of a focus as in England. We're working with Skills England as well. So the departments, both the MOD and DESNZ, obviously engage regularly with the devolved administrations on skills as well. So there's a range of engagement that goes on. All of the people who are members of the NSEC and overseeing the plan have operations across the devolved nations. Various representatives have significant operations in different parts of the UK, and I suspect there will be further development as we progress. Do you want to come in, Dan?
I'm sorry, no, that it was a mistake, sorry.
Okay. All right, back to you then. Thanks, Becky.
That's great. Thank you very much, Emily. Okay, next question I've picked here is one about doubling apprentices and graduates, and obviously an exciting and huge ambition, but the question is about how we then focus on the onboarding, the training and support of those early careers personnel, and make sure that we're giving them the experience that we might hope to. Given that this was recently addressed in the NSEC, Mark, do you want to pick that one up just in terms of our intent in the next couple of months?
Yeah, it is kind of question of the moment. So thank you for asking that one. Very aware of it. The experience that people have when they come into our companies has got to be top notch. And that applies to the previous question as well. Those that are already in our companies, we can't just focus on people arriving. We're working with each of the companies. This endeavour is not the NSST or the NSDB doing something to you. It's working with you to help you leverage your ambitions. So each of the companies, each of the NSEC companies we're talking to already have plans. They're already looking at how they modernise their offering, how they get the right balance of blended working that we know is a challenge to everybody. So a lot going on that we're right in the centre of and tapping into. A big theme of mine, we're trying not to recreate things here, trying to leverage, coordinate and bring them together. So we're a great vehicle through the hubs, through the working groups, for seeing best practice. Where somebody gets it particularly right and manages to leverage something, we'll help share that around. But there's already a lot going on in this space, and it is a big challenge as we go forward into these doubling numbers. I think Emily's going to give some input there.
Yeah, I was just going to add, Mark, to what you were commenting on. I mean, Becky's right. We talked about this at the last NSEC meeting last week. I think there's a recognition from all of the senior leaders across the sector that this scale of endeavour and the increase in workforce, including new entrants at different points in their careers, as we've been discussing, will warrant a different approach within organisations and within the wider sector to thinking about how we make a great experience for people. So I think individual organisations are already thinking about what does it mean for the support they give to line managers, to the ways that they approach onboarding and inductions. And also we will be thinking and have been tasked specifically by the NSEC to think more about how we move people around the sector who may not have been successful in their first application for a role, and how we make sure that the experience throughout their career is a good one. So I think there is a recognition that the scale of this endeavour and the scale of the kind of incoming workforce will be different to what the sector has been managing in the past, and that new approaches are going to be needed within organisations and between the sector as a whole. And we've got a number of things that we'll be working on to support that.
That's great. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Mark. And just to add to that, I think what this has illustrated is, whilst we're absolutely committed to delivering the plan and the activities and projects that are in the plan, where there are challenges or problems that get raised by industry in so doing, then we'll adjust and build in additional activities to support that. And this is one that's very much live as we speak, to think through how we provide organisations the support in this doubling piece. So thanks for that question. There are a couple of questions around the focus on vulnerable skills or kind of critical skills rather than the overall numbers that we probably emphasised in the start of the presentation. I guess I'll just give a little bit of background to this. So obviously our ambition, our desire is to meet that net 40,000 additional roles in the sector. But in terms of the focus of the projects that we are implementing, we are very much being guided by those most critical skill areas in doing so. So every one of our projects will consider the most critical skill areas that we're seeing as being most vulnerable as its priority. And we do that through labour market intelligence that we collect that helps, as well as getting the overall numbers, you know, what's the delta between supply and demand. It also helps us to focus on those skills that are viewed as being critical or vulnerable in terms of the availability of them in the market compared to the overall demand. So that gives us a list of, we've currently got 11 focus priority skill areas that will be updated in the next few months, actually, to make sure that we're constantly reviewing that. So that becomes the focus for all the projects, as well as the generic kind of increasing inflow. We do focus the activities on those generic skill areas, and I think somebody did mention health physics training as part of that. You know, if that person is an anonymous person, if they could get in touch once we've shared the briefing information afterwards, we might be able to link the work that's going on already on radiation protection to the programme that you're describing there. So we'll do that offline subsequently. The next, I'll do probably just one more question, actually, because I am aware of time. We must finish at 2. The last question is about accountability and the leadership of this programme and how we're holding organisations to account to delivering the programme and plan requirements. So I'm hoping Emily can still hear us. She's frozen on my screen. But Emily, do you want to try? Do you want to have a go at answering that one, and then I'll pass over to Mark perhaps to finish if there's anything else.
Sure. Thanks, Becky. I would hope that they feel very accountable for this. The NSEC will meet regularly, at least every 6 months, to monitor progress. And as I said earlier, to sort of problem solve any obstacles that we're encountering and think about next steps and devolutions of the plan. We are holding them all to account for the things they have committed to deliver in signing up to the plan and the charter. And as I explained, they've all signed up to provide people, to provide funding. They have committed to specific numbers of graduates and apprentices. And we are always on the case, checking and chasing and thanking them for the support. I have to say, thus far, it has principally been thanking them because the sector is really committed to delivery. Senior leaders are really committed to delivery. And I think they recognise that they all stand or fall together. So they're all very keen to be seen to delivering on the promises they've made and to embody the collaborative sort of spirit and endeavour in the charter. But the NSEC will give us a forum to bring all of the organisations together to check that we are doing what we've said we are going to chivying each other if that's what's needed, but also to thinking about how we can work together for some of the next things that we need to consider and resolve. So I'm not massively concerned that people aren't going to be accountable. They all seem to be very keen to deliver on what they've promised thus far. What do you think, Mark?
Oh, absolutely echo that. I think they're going to be driving us quite hard. I think where we'll start interacting a lot is as we unpack these, and you know, it's been the theme, how do we double grads and apps every year? We'll start presenting them with, are you willing to consider this? Would you go this far and do these kind of things? You know, the charter says we will think differently act differently to get a different result. So I think that's where the debate and the discussion will be. This isn't an attack and defence, though. This is something they really, really want. And they don't want it as part of some kind of virtue signalling. They think it's the next best thing to do. They're absolutely committed as individuals to this being so important for the nation and for the survivability and the health of their businesses. And that is an absolutely brilliant place to be and starting. Gives Emily and I some challenges interacting with them and delivering on that. But it's not attack and defence. This is everybody in it together, thinking differently, acting differently to achieve this national aim. Back to you, Becky. Sorry.
That's brilliant. No, thank you for that. And as I say, unfortunately, we're running out of time. There are a number of questions we've not got to. Learning for you, always be first in posting your questions in future, because I've gone for the initial questions first. But what we will do, as I said earlier, is we'll get back out and provide an answer to all of the questions that have been asked in the Q&A function subsequently. So on that basis, I'm going to hand over just to close out to Hannah, who will tell you about next steps and what you can expect from us.